This is the game right here, fellas.
The Broncos trailing by 5. Driscoll will bring Deshaun Hamilton in motion to his right. Driscoll back, looking to his left. Pressure comes and down he goes. Driscoll is sacked by Terrell Edmunds.
Wow.
Oh, man.
What a play.
Everybody, welcome inside Heinz Field and welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I am Missi Matthews. Let me introduce you to our panel. We are going to start with the Steelers defense. So first joining us today, Bob Labriola from Steelers.com. You probably already read Labriola on today to recap the Steelers win over the Broncos. Also back again is Tunch, Ilkin, former Steelers offensive lineman, not with Wolf right now, but that's okay. We're going to talk a lot of O-line with Tunch, 2 new starters, and former Steelers quarterback Charlie Batch joining us once again as well. Want to break down Ben's game with him. But guys, we have to start with the Steelers defense, and we pulled that sack that closed the game by Terrell Edmunds. Everybody said it after the game yesterday. It can come from anybody, and they have pretty much proven that this year. When you look at the Steelers, they had 7 sacks, a lot of different names on that list. So, Labs, what did you take away from the defense's performance? It's a good stat line, but the game changed from the first half to the second half.
Yeah, just to go back and touch on a little bit about, what Mike Tomlin said after the game about that going after the quarterback is the Steelers' personality. And he said, we'll bring anybody but the field cornerback. And we don't bring the field cornerback because he lines up so far away from the line of scrimmage. I did a little bit of research. Terrell Edmunds has played over 2,100 defensive snaps for the Steelers in 2+ seasons. That was just his second career sack. And so I don't know if the Broncos really believed when they saw him, if they did, lining up on the slot there, that he would be coming off the edge and blitzing, because that has not been his history or the Steelers' history in using him. Just quickly, to me, the difference in the defense was the penalties. 4 defensive pass interference penalties, 1 horse collar tackle, 1 roughing the passer. I'm sure that the coaches will look over that video and determine, whether those calls were good or not, and how to clean up some of the technique maybe involved in those. But you take away those defensive pass interference penalties, a couple of them were on 3rd down. You get off the field then. And so our perception of the defensive performance changes totally, one way or the other there. So to me, the big difference was the penalties.
Tunch, we now have 2 games that you can go look at in terms of what the Steelers defense has brought so far. What did you take away from game number 2?
Missi, one of the things, the running game, I was looking and scrutinizing it. Last week against the Giants, the Giants had a power running game. Joe Judge said that we're coming downhill, we're going to punch you in the nose for 60 minutes. And Saquon Barkley was a straight line runner. So they stopped it. This week, Melvin Gordon is a cutback runner, and so they started running the outside zone. And the Steelers in the first half were over pursuing, and Melvin Gordon cut it back. One time Minka had to make a tackle, and it was a hole that that a truck could have drove through, and there was a lot of grass, but he made that tackle. But one of the things that we did in the second half was both Bud Dupree and TJ Watt set the edge, and they played gap control, gap discipline. And so every time that Melvin Gordon cut back, we made the play. And then, one of the things that, TJ Watt, 2.5 sacks, Bud Dupree, a sack, Mike Hilton, a sack, and Tyson Alu. One of the things that we were talking about was Tyson Alu, Lloyd Cushenberry. And so when I was talking to Wolf, he said, Lloyd Cushenberry's great. He's a very quick guy. I said, no, he's soft. And he goes, no, he's great. I said, no, he's soft. And so he started watching film, and he said, when he came into the radio booth Friday, he said, okay, he's soft.
Now, Charlie, we saw Drew Lock start the game. Of course, he got hurt. They brought in Jeff Driscoll. How much do you think that changed what the Steelers defense did in terms of maybe filling out what Driscoll was going to do? This is somebody that even TJ Watt said we didn't look at that much.
Yeah, and that's the point right there. When you're the backup, you're not typically preparing for, because so early in the season, Locke is going to come in and you expect him to play a full game. But when the backup comes in, now all your keys and whatnot are thrown off, because he may be a little bit more mobile. If he is, then you have to protect those running lanes. For me, watching this game, when you talk about some of those plays that Tunch just talked about with Melvin Gordon, when you look at it, it's pure mistakes by the Steelers. One time, Bud Dupree expanded the hole, cut back run. There was another time there was a wide motion, and Vince Williams ran out of his gap. Another big play by Melvin Gordon. So they have to trust what they see, read their keys, and the biggest part is communication. And if you go back and watch Driscoll's touchdown pass on the corner route to the tight end, we all see Devin Bush running after the tight end, but was it really the tight end's fault? Because if you go back at the end of that film, you immediately see Edmonds and Hilton look at each other saying, "What are you doing?" And right there explained that you had an extra defender there, but you were one short and gave up a touchdown. So that's something that they're going to have to clean up from a communication perspective.
All right, thanks, guys. We're going to talk a lot more about the Steelers offense coming up, but of course it is Victory Monday here. The Steelers are now 2-0, and our Steelers Nation Unite account asked fans to submit some celebrations, some towel twirling, how they are celebrating the Steelers starting the season 2-0 and a win over the Broncos yesterday. So thanks to all of our fans who continue to show their support. We missed everyone at Heinz Field yesterday. We're going to take a quick break. The Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface continues after this. Welcome back to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I am Missi Matthews. Our expert panel today is going to take a closer look into some things that transpired in yesterday's win over the Broncos. Tunch, I want to start with you. That right side of the offensive line had some new faces there. Rookie Kevin Dotson getting his first NFL start. We saw him play a little bit against the Giants. And then Chooks Okorafor taking over at right tackle for Zach Banner. So what did you make of their performance and the O-line as a whole, Tunch?
I thought they played well, Missy. One of the things that I noticed about Kevin Dotson, he's a mauler. He is a squat monster, and he comes off the ball really well, and then he gets his hands inside. And then, one of the things I noticed, that he is nasty. When the guy is going down, he pushes him down, and then he gores him. And that's what I love about Kevin Dotson. And one of the things I noticed was that he gets his hands up really quick when he's pass blocking. He carries his hands a little low. I would coach him to carry his hands a little higher, but he punches and then he dances with the defensive tackle. He did a great job at Jarrell Casey, and he did a great job at Shelby Harris. And Chooks, Chooks is a very athletic. He's got great feet. And he started using his hands. Last year, he didn't use his hands very well. But this year, he uses his hands very well. He punches in the chest. And both of them, they come off the ball. And I like the way they combination blocked. When they took in James Conner's run, they took him off the ball. And then Kevin Dotson got to the second level, and Chooks stayed on Shelby Harris. So I think they're great. I do wish David DeCastro would come back, but I like Kevin Dotson. I like Chooks, but David DeCastro was the best pulling guard, possibly in the league, and he's a very tough guy. And I'm concerned that he hasn't showed up for anything. And so, I believe that Mike Tomlin is concerned.
All right, Charlie, I bet you know who I want to talk to you about. That, of course, is Ben Roethlisberger. Threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. We did see his first interception of the season. After the game, every question Ben got, he kept saying, I did not play well enough. Thank goodness our defense bailed us out. So tell us, how did Ben Roethlisberger play against the Broncos?
Yeah, listening to that after the game, he was really critical of himself, and he didn't feel like he played his best football. So I had to go back, look at it, and let me see what he was thinking about during that time. And early in the ball game, it just looked like his feet was a little ahead of his arm. He wasn't stepping towards his target, and there were some mistakes that fortunate for the Steelers that he wasn't taking advantage of, meaning the interception that should have been in the end zone that he left short. Of course, he turned the football over to one that counted on his interception. And then to me, looking at it, it was just not stepping toward your targets, and the accuracy that we're accustomed to seeing with Ben, he was a little off. Those plays that typically that he's able to catch receivers in stride, they had to slow down to catch the ball. So those are the type of things that he was talking about. But if this is what we're talking about, a hungrier Ben saying he needs to play his best, we're 2-0, he's sitting at 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring more to the table, because I expect, and he expects, a lot more of himself.
Let me ask you this, Charlie. Is that something Ben can work on in practice, or is that just the next time when they are here at Heinz Field hosting the Texans that he can make sure that he is comfortable doing what he knows he should be doing?
Yes, he can, and that's going back to the basics. When you're learning from the beginning, you're talking about holding the arm up, stepping to your targets, little things like that you tend to take for granted the longer you're in the league. But last year, being that he missed that time, essentially this is only his second preseason game, so he's going to now get the feel of the game. So I expect that to come back, but I expect a lot more individual work from Ben in practice this week.
All right, now, Labs, I know it was an ugly win, and you live in your fears, so I'm sure the whole second half you are not very happy up in the press box here at Heinz Field. So you did some research. You already told us about Terrell Edmunds only having 2 sacks, but in terms of the penalties and just the overall sloppiness, what do you take away from this 2-0 start?
Well, it's not something that I'm willing to dismiss, and I'm sure that the coaching staff isn't either. But as Charlie mentioned, this whole offseason was weird. And so you had no offseason program, no OTAs, no mini camp, and no preseason games. As Charlie mentioned, this is kind of what we saw Sunday was kind of like the second preseason game. So I think a degree of sloppiness is understandable. Certainly you want to minimize it and work hard towards eliminating it. But I don't necessarily believe that, some of the sloppiness that we saw is something that is going to be a season-long issue. To me, what really has the potential for being a problem, and this is all based on, we don't know how the officials are going to call the games this season, because they didn't have, an off season either. They weren't allowed to visit training camps, and so there was no back and forth between the teams and the officials in terms of what might be the areas of, significance, what they're going to emphasize this year. And, when we look at it through the first 2 games, I'm going to give you a little more research here. Through the first 2 games of the 2019 season, officials were calling 15.8 penalties per game for 129.7 yards. So in 2020, they're calling 4 fewer penalties per game so far over the first 2 weeks for about 22 fewer yards. Now, I've seen something that the league sent a directive to the officials, just call the obvious things. Now, I think that was reflective in opening weekend games, but I don't know if that's going to continue, how it's going to vary from one crew to the next. But again, I think a lot of the Steelers' problems stemmed from some of those defensive penalties that kept the offense on the field, and then the defense is taking more snaps, and there's more opportunities for you to mess up. There's more opportunities for Melvin Gordon to hit a nice cutback on a stretch play and things of that nature. So working on those, cleaning those things up, I think will solve a lot of the problems moving forward.
All right, guys, we're going to take one more break. When we return, we'll talk about the Steelers' run game and Benny Snell. Don't go anywhere. welcome back to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Guys, I want to stick with the offense here. We talked about them a little bit in the last segment. So, Tunch, I'll start with you. What is the one thing you really want to see the offense improve on as they head into week 3?
You know, Missy, I want them to run the ball better. You know, I want to see a little bit more outside zone, inside zone cutbacks. You know, I was very impressed with James Conner on that 59-yard play that in the end of the game, and it closed it. Closed it off. One of the things that I see is those guys. They come off the ball, and so one of the things that we've seen is a lot more eye candy, shifts, jet sweeps, and boots. But you know, one of the things, when you run the ball effectively, you can play action pass. And one of the things that I saw in the Denver defense was Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell. They bit on the run fake, and you know, I think the Texans are going to bite on the run fake as well. So when you run the ball effectively, the linebackers crash, and so you want to be able to, and so, you know, like Charlie said, I want to see Ben in the no huddle too. I like to see Ben when he's in rhythm and he's making the right throws. But you know, it's without preseason games, we're growing. You're growing.
And it's good to grow when you're 2-0. So, Charlie, what's the one thing you want to see when the Texans are here at Heinz Field next Sunday?
I'm staying consistent. I want to see the offense get off to a faster start. To this in yesterday's game, they went 3 and out on their opening possession. When this offense was at its best, they were able to put touchdowns up on the board early and forcing the opponents to play from behind. They have yet to do that right now. So I think when you look back and you look at just this start of this game, fumble by Deontay Johnson on the opening. Yes, James Conner ran 6 or 7 on the next play. Then they come up short on 3rd down, you punt. You can't start a game that way. So in order for them to continue to do it, I want to see them press. But again, as they roll into this 3rd preseason game, essentially, I want to see these guys to get going early.
All right, Labs, what about you?
Well, in terms of the offense, you know, I agree with both Tunch and Charlie. I think running the ball is important. You need to be effective running the ball, and starting quicker also as an offense is important, because then you are able to set the tone of the game. You know, I was disappointed a little bit in, you know, the first play. And by that, I mean, you know, again, I keep beating this drum. There was no preseason. There were no OTAs or mini camps. I don't know that, you know, jet sweeps are something that I wouldn't characterize it as one of Ben's favorite plays. And so starting a game with that, to me, is too much of a risk. And so I think that in order to get off to a quick start, there should be more attention paid to what plays Ben is most comfortable running and executing as a unit. I understand that, you know, these are just players and they shouldn't be, you know, in charge of things they shouldn't be in charge of. But, you know, Mike Tomlin has said that the emphasis from a coaching standpoint through the first couple of games is to try and put these guys in the best position to perform and to succeed. And I don't know that that's happened necessarily with the offense through the first couple of games, and that's why I think we've seen these slow starts. So again, you know, the script, I understand the purpose behind it and the reason for it, but maybe the script should be centered more on things that have been working by the things that the Steelers have been made work, as opposed to the things that should work against the opponent.
All right, now, Tunch, you brought up James Conner. He had over 100 yards rushing yesterday. We did see some Benny Snell, even Jalen Samuels in the game. Anthony McFarland got his first helmet, but he did not play a single snap. Now, in terms of Benny Snell, this is now 2 games, Tunch, with a fumble. Are you concerned, and what do you think the Steelers do moving forward with him?
Yeah, I am concerned, Missy, because he's the two fumbles. And, one of the things I love James Conner. James is physical. He is fast. He changes directions quickly. He's got great vision. And, I'm a big James Conner fan. And he is physical. And he lowers the shoulder and he runs over guys. I'd like to see Anthony McFarland, too, because when I saw him on film, he's got great visions. He's got a great jump cut. He pushes the tight end on the outside zone, and he bounces it outside, and he cuts back. So he's a complete running back. So those I want to see those 3. And I'm not saying don't play Benny Snell, because he showed me from the New York Giants game that he was an effective running back.
Charlie, what would you do in terms of the situation with Benny Snell right now with the 2 fumbles through 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a defensive coordinator, you're watching this. You're saying, yes, the first 2 games he put the ball on the ground. But if you go back and you're thinking, okay, 4 of the last 5, he put the ball on the ground. So he's now becoming known as a fumbler, and that you just can't have that in this league. So I promise you that Mike Tomlin is addressing that, and he's going to say, okay, what do we need to do? And if you can't protect this football, I'm not going to put you on the field. So I expect him to get better. But the one thing that concerns me, he has to realize the blitz protection quicker. Because if you go back to Chase Claypool's 84-yard touchdown, Benny Snell's in the backfield. He's looking at the safety, and he gets too caught up and looking at the safety, and he misses the blitzing linebacker, and he comes off late, which results in Ben getting hit. But we don't see that because it resulted in the touchdown. But those are the hits that you have to take off of Ben, because if you take that, and that's what takes a toll on the season, those type of hits add up. So he just has to become quicker in his assignments. And if he doesn't, then that's going to open the door up for young Anthony McFarland.
All right, Labs, as I mentioned, you live in your fears. What are you thinking here in terms of Benny Snell?
Well, the problem with Benny Snell fumbling to me is when they are happening. The Steelers against the Broncos, when he lost that fumble, I sensed that the Steelers were getting into the grind the clock, milk the clock with the running game kind of mode. Okay, he loses that fumble. The Broncos put it in the end zone, and now it's a whole other game all of a sudden. You can't have that, the mentality that you had previous to the fumble, after the fumble. And so it's the situations too. Fumbling is bad, and if you can't hold on to the ball, you can't put them in the game. I mean, to me, it's that simple. This is professional football. If you're a running back, that is part of your job. And so you can't have that. But you especially can't have that in the situations in which it has been occurring so far this season. I don't know, talking to him, make him carry the ball around all the time, all of those old coaching cliche things. I don't know if that works or not, or if there has to be some sort of, revelation, an aha moment for Benny Snell or something, whatever. But I'm just saying you cannot have that. And at this point, like Charlie said, he now has a reputation as a fumbler. And so every time he gets the football and goes into try to get through the line of scrimmage, everybody's going to be trying to strip the ball. And so that also exacerbates the problem. I don't know, maybe I don't go to Benny Snell in that situation on Sunday just to try and get his attention a little bit more. But as I said, when you have a reputation as a fumbler and you are doing it at the wrong times of the game, I can't have you on the field.
He ought to call Jerome. He's got to call Jerome and carry the ball the way Jerome Bettis did.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your expert panel expertise as always. I don't even know if that made sense, but I appreciate all of your help of helping us recap the Steelers' win over the Broncos. An ugly win, as Labs would say, but it feels good to be 2-0. The Texans will be here at Heinz Field on Sunday, another 1 o'clock kick, which I know all of you love, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.